G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Just to get this out of the way, you know that anything we discuss is general in nature and not intended to give advice. Today we're going to welcome back in a guest who really kind of shared some wonderful insights in the past. Julian Khursigara, welcome back.
Thanks, Aaron. Good to be here again.
Mate, Search Party Property, we're gonna pop the hood on what you're buying, where you're buying, how you're doing things as well. But mate, we are having a quick chat and he said about your teenage girls that you've got. That's why I've got you in here, mate. We're not talking property. We're talking about how to father two daughters, mate.
Mate, don't ask me. I'm still trial and testing, and they're 19 and 16.
I just want to know what's ahead of me, mate. It's a 5 and 3-year-old. It's
well, your hairline might end up looking a bit like mine.
Mate, too late. It's already happened. How's life treating you?
Good, yeah. It's been great. Had a little break, which is nice to really recover and sort of step away from the computer, which I haven't done for many a year. That was good, and yeah, refreshed and feeling really excited about this year. I think it's already been a really good quarter for us. Yeah, really strong. January was one of our biggest quarters, our biggest months for years. So when you start fast in January, it really holds you in good stead.
Isn't it amazing when you say that, because you listen to. Not that I spend a lot of time listening to media, but on YouTube, you know, as my algorithms now picked up all the property news, and it's like doom and gloom, bad news, unaffordable, unattainable, house prices unrealistic. And then you and I mean, we've had some of our biggest months and it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. 13 interest rate rise, and you're saying, hey, we're at a bumper Jan, and you're still pretty busy. Yeah. Says a lot. Does it say a lot about what we're, as in our respective business, but that's not exclusive to us, because I know heaps of my colleagues are out of control, busy. Does it just say there's a cohort in the market that are just ignoring the noise and are getting on with it?
Yeah, it feels that way. I think, you know, the press is also plays a big part in what we do. So when you say 11, 13 horror stories, you know, mortgage cliff, all these words, where'd all that go? It just disappeared.
Correct.
So as we were saying earlier today as well, you know, it's been really good press. It's all about positivity and growth. And then on Saturday, it's all about interest rates are going to go up.
Correct.
You know, and then, you know, these economists who are paid a lot of money say there's a 50% chance. I mean, anyone could figure that one out. It's either going up or it's not. Not rocket science to come up with a big statistic like that. But when this starts to put a little bit doubt in people's minds, and can I afford it? So it's going to be really interesting to see where we end up. But I feel the market is just in the position. So coming from a data perspective, you know, low stock, still very low inventory. You know, inflation is controlled. Migration is still coming in. Yeah. So where we, you know, that balance alone is to say that the market's still in a good position in not across Australia, but in many cities and states.
Absolutely. And then you overlay that with stage 3 tax cuts. Now, it's not going to change everyone's life, but it just puts a little bit back in from a borrowing capacity perspective. Yeah. From what we're hearing, rates throughout 2024 are going to be either on hold, possibly a raise as well. But I feel like people are getting in before these changes. Yeah. So, while we say there's no crystal ball, and anyone says they know what's going to happen is absolutely full of it, if you ask me. So what I want to do is really go deep on what you guys are doing, because we've got a couple of clients that are in the works together, which I thought it's great to get you back in here. And really, the episodes that trend well are client stories, so people that have been there, done that, or we show how people have achieved it through a few case studies. And that's what we're going to do today, which I'm super pumped about. So if you're listening, probably on Spotify or Apple, you probably want to jump onto YouTube and check out the video format of this, because it's going to have all the case studies in the background as well as we scroll through. We'll probably put this as a downloadable, so if you do want to come in there and check out this episode, we'll have these as a PDF download for you to check out too. So mate, take me through, what are the typical clients? I know there's no like one type of client avatar that you're dealing with, but are you seeing people that are coming in going, hey, we're rent investors, or people that have lazy equity that are looking to pull that out at the moment, they're not sure what to do? What's the flavor at the moment?
I'd say, you know, the avatar, if you will, for the, like, say 70% of our clients, we did a bit of a measurement last year, is mum and dad, couple of kids, normally infants to primary school level, have a PPOR, a home, and they've got some equity, lazy equity, as you said, and now talking about the future, also using some of the equity to get into property investing, because it's obviously a busy topic at a barbecue. Yeah. So that's the starting point. What's trending is also what you just said, the rent investors. So not everyone's got a silver spoon where the bank of mum and dad's helping them along the way. So they're obviously frustrated saying, well, we don't live 60 k's away from the city. We like our lifestyle. And they've just given in. They've had enough. And so we can't buy in Sydney unless they want to buy an apartment. And that's a different lifestyle choice as well. And where they can buy, and they know that's not going to be a great investment long term, because even though they buy an apartment, they're kind of stuck. Well, you know this from a finance perspective. How can they can't pull equity out of that, because potentially the growth of that apartment isn't going to be as strong as a house.
Yeah, there was a really good article that spoke about that. Was typically the stepping stone to go on and buy a house, which is to buy a unit, then sell that, and then buy a house. But it just feels like the price growth on houses just is superseding the growth on the apartment and their ability to save on top of that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, right? It's you're buying land is what you're buying, and it's growing, or you're buying air if you're in a high rise. And I guess, you know, that word's got a little bit of a smell to it at the moment, right? Particularly in Sydney, and well, not too different in Melbourne as well. Just those high rise apartments, the quality. You know, in the Hills District, we saw what happened there with some of the big developments there. So I think all of those things are making people a little bit uneasy. So they're coming and saying, okay, well,
an apartment. I mean, you and I know it. As you have kids, you might be able to get away with it when they're really, really small.
Yeah.
But as they need more as we need more space, and you want to have a bit more room, inevitably you find yourself becoming the token. We need a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, right? You eventually fall into that type of.
Yeah, I think also culturally, if you look at our migrants that are coming in, obviously the top two are Indian and Chinese. We see a distinct. The Chinese are okay with apartments.
100%.
They're used to it. They're okay. The Indian, it's almost maybe it's that great dream that they're living, coming to a new country, and they want a house. They want to do it fast.
They want a house. They want a brand new house. Is what they want.
Correct. And you saw what happened out at. I didn't pick it at all.
Yeah.
I laughed, and people asked me about it years ago, and I said, "Don't do it." Box Hill, Marsden Park. The ponds in those areas, at least you could see that could work, because it's not too far away from the Kellyvilles or the more built up areas. But look what happened out at Box Hill.
Oh, it's wild.
They still haven't got roads out there. And the prices went nuts. And, you know, unfortunately, inferior building and things like that. But it worked. People made a lot of money.
They want a brand new house, mate. And I've said this before on the podcast, but there's the stat, a new migrant will buy their home within 5 to 10 years of coming to this country.
Yeah.
And you think about the migration rush that we've had in the last couple of years, that next wave of demand is coming, call it within the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy when you think about we don't have supply matching current levels of demand, let alone future demand as well.
Yeah, and I think that goes about my point about why I'm confident with the market. You know, we obviously want to hope that all Australians can get into a home and there's not too much suffering out there, and we can afford the affordability aspect of it, but the market's still in a very good position.
Yeah, cool. Hey, thanks very much. That lays a bit of context for what we're going to talk about. So let's get into the first client case study that we've got. So what we want to do is showcase when someone's starting out and they want to scale up, it's getting that cornerstone property, the first one right.
Yeah.
That's typically where people, you know, I've been there where I bought the first property. I just thought of getting to the market and buy something, but that just leaves you hamstrung. You just cannot scale after that if you get the first one wrong. So that's where we want to see people really kind of have that strategy around what are they buying, where are they buying, what's the game plan to get number one right, to then leverage to go quickly to number two as well. Alrighty, so we've got Daniel. Tell us a little about Daniel.
Yeah, so Daniel, as it says, a young dentist and lives in Brisbane. Similar story to what you just said and what I did as well. You know, I bought an apartment and couldn't leverage that apartment. You know, the apartment I bought in Sydney, my first one, it was in Erskineville, Newtown. Yeah, right. 6 years, no growth. So you can't.
It's crazy. It's crazy to tell someone today that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. It's like, what did you buy? It was a brand new multiplex, beautiful apartment. Yeah. But it was in that lull period of the Sydney market.
Wow.
So Daniel did a similar thing in Brisbane, but, you know, obviously earning good money. Yeah. And still relatively young. So he wanted to build up his portfolio first, as opposed to going and buying his own family home.
Right.
And that's worked out really well for him. So we've got a couple of properties here. The strategy was he was not that confident. Let's just start easy. So you can see his budget was around 400 grand. He had more money, but he was happy to spend 450 or so. So we found him the property here in Logan Lee in Brisbane. And you can see within that short period of time, I think 12 to 18 months, he made 20% on that. So the beautiful part of that increase is you take that equity, and he was quickly to buy the next one straight away.
Yeah.
So that was the one way to turbocharge his confidence and also his portfolio. And so now the next one we're getting ready for from finance will be a bigger purchase.
It's incredible. I mean, what did you say that was? A 12 to 20? How long was that time period?
That was 18 months, and that's 12 months. Yeah.
So 18 months, he's clicked over 160K uplift.
Yeah.
That's nuts. You can't save that type of money.
No, that's right. Not in today's inflation living standards. So,
right?
yeah.
And you can save it, but you can't leverage against those savings. Whereas this property, you can leverage against it.
That's right. And being a dentist, it's time versus money, right? He's selling his time.
Yep.
And he makes good money, but he's not at that level at this stage yet.
And being a dentist, so if you're a dentist, doctor, lawyer, accountant, what else have we got? There's a couple of professions. 90% no mortgage insurance.
Yeah,
so he's buying a property,
10%
no mortgage insurance. So he's saving himself quite a few $1,000s on the way in.
That's right. Yeah, so that was the strategy there. And he's well on his way now to build a bigger portfolio. And when he's ready, he can buy that family home. He hasn't got a family yet, so he can move into that once he's ready.
He's ticking a few boxes: dentist, property portfolio.
Yeah,
good young kid. Yeah, mate, good head on his shoulders, that's for sure. So then, take me through. He's bought the next property, WA, purchase price just under 400K. The yield 7%. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so he got the double whammer, right? Most people say, "Oh, you can't get yield and growth," but we got into WA pretty early before that. Now it's a wash.
Now it's hot.
But we got in there pretty early, put a local on the ground, and really built that market there, and we're able to buy quite a lot of properties in that first year of the boom, pre-boom, I should say. And now these guys are just taking their winnings and rolling it into more property.
Yeah,
so you can either sit back and say, great, I'll just keep holding on to that. But if they get a good taste. And so even Daniel was a little bit wary, and that's hence why low budget to start with.
Yeah.
And then they get a taste for like, okay, well, this can work if we do it well, use a professional. He's a professional, so it made sense to him to use a professional to help him do his work.
Do they have, and here's what I have with a lot of our, I call for what is more educated clients, right? They're a bit more savvy. They go, 400K, am I buying a cheapie? Am I buying a bit, something crap? Because they're used to buy at a certain price point. I think buying below that, you're buying something cheap and nasty. Does that conversation
the egos definitely come in, and that's why a lot of that profession, medical profession, for example, they love house and land packages and that sort of, because it's glossy, it's big, and they can talk to their friends about it.
Oh, blue chip all the way.
Blue chip, they talk about only buying in eastern suburbs of Sydney or wherever it might be in different areas. But I guess Daniel, being a little bit younger, not so much influenced by his peers yet, was happy to, and obviously didn't have the money to take and buy the blue chip yet.
That's it, isn't it?
Because he's just starting out, as you know. It's when you're a junior dentist, you're still earning good money, but you're not in the 300 or 400 mark, which he will be in years to come.
Absolutely. And the other parties, he's probably got a big HEX debt next to his name, which now we know that impacts borrowing capacity. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword for a lot of our younger graduates. I mean, one of our other podcasts, if you listen to our finance Q&A with my broking team, we speak about the impact that HEX is having on younger borrowers. Go and study, get educated, and come out with a giant HEX debt. Yeah. Especially medical, and that impacts serviceability.
You had a young, it's funny you brought that up. Yesterday, a guy, teacher,
right?
And we went through what he wants to do, and what his vision is and goals, and we kind of marked that out. And I obviously brought up, what about the HEX debt? That might affect your borrowing. And he said, no, I paid that off. I'm like, awesome. How'd you do that? He said, man, I just worked really hard during uni. I didn't go out. I didn't go, he's in Brisbane. I didn't go to Fortitude Valley, and I just put my money in. I said, well done. I hope you had some fun along the way, but well done. I'm paying your HEX debt off already.
Isn't it?
Which means now his borrowing capacity is going to be much stronger than anyone else at, what's he in his mid-20s now, I think.
Right.
24, so
here's
it's very
thing,
early.
Mate. Going through uni personally, everyone's like, HEX is the best debt you'll ever have. It's not going to cost you anything. And now it's getting ramped up with inflation indexes, and you're like, that's gone up by 7%. And, it's still expected to go up quite a few percent over the next financial year. So it's like, just be careful though. Like, it might feel like it's a low percentage interest like loan, but it has its own unintended consequences.
Yeah, it's still a wonderful benefit to be in a country like ours where you can come from any class of background and still go to the best universities in Australia.
Mate, 100%. 100%. I agree with that. So let's talk about this. So the uplift on this property, when do we buy it and when do we get this valuation done?
These valuations were done recently, just in the last month.
Okay.
Yeah,
so how long
very
between
fresh.
buying for 395 to getting a 475 val?
That was under 12 months.
Under 12 months.
Yeah.
So again, what are we doing? Let's test my math. 80 grand uplift
Yep.
in under 12 months. So we've got 160 plus 80, 240K over a couple of years. It's incredible.
So it's more he can earn, more than he's earning at the moment. And you can see they're very, I guess the beauty of that is, they're quite low, very low purchases as of today's value. We bought a $3.5 million property the other day in the northwest of Sydney. So, you can see there are quite extremes that we're buying, but this is the strategy that's working for this type of individual. And so we don't have a one-trick pony approach. It's obviously individualized to what the goals are, their income, their abilities, their finances.
Yeah. I mean, that's where a lot of the good BAs, buyers agents, very bespoke, very customized in terms of what's your brief, what's your requirement, and then you go out and find the property. Yeah. Rather than having properties and then going, hey, look, we've got some buyers already. Yeah,
so we don't focus, you can have to buy Newcastle, you have to buy here or there. It just depends on what the client is. And that's having that team on the ground, WA, Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne now helps us to achieve that.
Cool. Another objection I'd probably anticipate people who listen go, is there still buying opportunities sub 400K? Because these were bought probably just a little bit, probably about a year ago.
Well, you can see those prices aren't any longer, and very, very difficult, particularly in Perth, unless you houses. Yeah. But then what does a townhouse look like? So that's a possibility. Okay. But then we're moving away from land. Yeah. Bigger blocks of land into smaller arrangements. So you could do that, or you can North Queensland. Right. Is another area, but even that's done pretty well. Some of those areas like Townsville, Rockingham, Gladstone. So we've done some work there as well. So just again, depending on what they're looking at. Obviously, these areas were great because the yields are strong. And WA gave us that double whammy. We got the price increase, but also strong yield. Yeah, that's right. You want to latch on just before. Still people knocking on the doors to get into a rental property there, unfortunately. And same in Brisbane. We've got a property management business as well, and it's very rare that we have any properties for too long advertised for lease. Yeah, correct.
We had one client in WA, first open, Adelaide, 35 people through it. Yep. Just the first 10 minutes and fly. Yeah.
I've seen that happen in Sydney as well in some pockets. It's pretty scary when you turn up to it.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Awesome. Thanks very much. So this is Daniel. So where do you think he'll go from here?
Well, our discussions with him is looking at in Brisbane now again, but something with a bigger purchase, maybe with the view it could be, which could be then emotional, something that he may look to moving into in the future. Right. So that's when we try to define the difference between an emotional purchase and an investment purchase. Now in Brisbane, you could probably get away with it if you bought the right type of asset. Yeah. But so that's something he's considering whether he does that now or just he's enjoying investing. Does he keep building his portfolio? There's no rush for them to get a house. They haven't got children or anything yet. Yeah. So they've still got a while up their sleeve.
It's awesome. Awesome. You look at that portfolio, he's going to do exceptionally well. Good foundations.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where it starts, build that foundation asset. Do you start with $600,000, $800,000, $1 million, or do you break that $1 million into two and buy two properties? And a lot does come down to the individual. Yeah. Their risk tolerance, things like that. Some people are a little bit wary at first. Some people are like, let's go. I'm ready to go fast.
Yeah, some people are very agnostic about where and what they're buying, as long as the price, yield, and then potential uplift makes sense. Let's rock and roll.
Sometimes I get people say about Perth, it's a little bit far away. It's like, yeah, but are you going to go and see it?
Are you living there? Yeah, great. And I think they're just projecting some of their own insecurities or thoughts.
And once you just go through, have a bit of tongue in cheek and say, well, if I bought in Melbourne or Brisbane, it's still far away. Are you going to go and visit it? Yeah. Oh, no. I was like, well, what's the difference in Perth? I said, but I get it if you have an issue with it being a long way away. It's another country, we know, but and they normally talk their way out of it and understand it. If it meets their objectives, if we can prove the data source, prove the cash flow analysis, wheel out their 10-year plans, then they're happy to go ahead.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks very much. Let's flick across to our next case study, which is Gaza. So Gary is single father, which is an interesting one. We see this quite commonly, separation, and then they've got to get back onto their their feet as well financially.
Yeah, had a bit of a tough time.
Yeah.
Through life, and but wanted to get back on track, and he was working really hard, long hours, 6 days a week. But
working hard for their money, but their money's not working hard for them.
Yeah, and I guess he had cash.
Yeah.
But then, so what I was smart enough to know I'm not going to leave it in the bank. He liked a good time, so he liked his whiskey. We talked about whiskey a lot, and so he didn't want to spend it on whiskey, so he thought he'd better get out of the bank. And
unless he's going to become a whiskey collector,
that's different.
Those have done all right.
Then he could become a good friend of mine. But so he was very clear on his objectives, and again, his issue was he didn't have strong serviceability.
Okay.
And so
cash, good cash, not the big income.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we weren't able to get him the finance he wanted to really, for number one, to go out. So the idea wasn't to buy in Perth. So 339.
Right.
That wasn't, he was hoping around, when we first met, it was the 500 word was kind of banded around. And then we found out, he's not going to get that. And we helped him. We've tried to find a couple of people to help him, and it wasn't going to happen because one of his jobs were on a bit of a side hustle.
Okay, fair enough.
A little bit of green colour in cash. So that was the difficult part. So anyway, we started with Perth again at the early times of the Perth market, and obviously did very well. Again, the yield is important for him.
Dude,
so low cash flow.
9.2% yield is strong.
Yeah. So, weak cash flow, so we need to make sure we had positive. Which we achieved, but also buying in really good areas, understanding what was happening in those areas through government infrastructure spend, the Navy redevelopment, these type of things, and that price point.
Okay. So take me through, why is something like the Navy government spending, why is that an indicator for you?
Well, one of the indicators, so when we looked at Perth over 2 years ago now, these sort of indicators came up with the research that we're looking at, reading the state government reports, looking at some of the data that we're getting through ABS and census, and then went over there and spent a week there, and they're very welcoming, the West Australians, when you go there.
Yes.
If you don't go there, they all think we're over here sipping soy lattes and not a very friendly bunch. So they really appreciate it, and they took me around, and counsellors, builders, developers, agents, and just brokers just helped me and showed me around, and took me down to Rockingham, showed what's going on over there. And so, well, okay, these are going to bring these many jobs. This is going to come out here. A lot of that is along the coastline, so we have to go inland to find the property. So these areas are going to do well.
Okay.
And it was well connected by road and by rail. So it was pretty clear that was going to be a good place to buy.
Well done. He'd be pretty happy with that. So you get into the first one. Obviously, there's great uplift, then be able to get the leverage. So 339, the valuation, how long does that take between 339 to 500?
That one happened. So what we did with his money, because it was a bit tricky, we bought in tranches.
Okay.
So obviously number one at 339, then he was able to take out a little bit within that first, I think 6 months. He made a good chunk of money, which was enough to get that equity plus cash up to 500 to get him number two.
Okay.
And since then he's converted number three, which is in Perth again.
Beautiful.
I didn't put it there. We didn't do the valuation on that yet, but that was, that's put him in really good stead. Now, obviously 18 months to make 25% growth. I mean, our average growth in Perth last year in 2023 was 23%. I mean, Mandurah went at 28.
Wow.
So, people who got in early, and we saw the same thing in Brisbane in 21. Yeah. Now, we've been buying in Brisbane since 18. Yeah. And so hundreds of properties, a lot of those guys then got on that wave, and then were able to turbocharge their portfolios from that.
Yeah, nice work. Well done. So now you're saying he's bought 3 properties. So he bought 2 properties in 3 months, and he's bought a third.
Bought a third, which was 12 months later, which actually was his plan. Like, it was nice to see that was his goal, but it wasn't going to be able to be done so quickly. Yeah. So being able to buy, well, he took action. He was very positive. He knew what he wanted to do, and he basically, it had to work.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got,
And
he's
it
got
was,
nothing else to lean
in
on.
fairness, there was a risk to go out to WA because it still wasn't proven yet. There's still that stigma around the one-trick pony town and the crash. But he trusted us. He put his faith in us. And, he's now, put himself in a really good position to rebuild his life and his income.
Okay. So what is someone like this? What is their play? Is it buy 3 properties, keep going, and then have these paid off to get the rental income? Or is it buy 5, sell 3, pay off 2, get the cash flow from 2? Because, I mean, what have we got? 600, 800, so it's at 1,400. You do the math on that per year. He's getting what, 70, somewhere around 60, 70 grand, for example. Is that the target for someone like him, or is it to keep going?
No. Again, due to age, he doesn't want to keep going right now. So it's about stability. He's got kids to think about. He's got a pretty physical job to think about. So all of these are in consideration. And he's obviously not, I wouldn't say people are greedy, but he's not. He's very clear, and he's achieved that quicker than he thought. And so I think he just, there's a few things in his life, just settle that down and keep going.
Nice one.
So pay off his debt.
Yeah.
And then it gives him some options in life as well, right? So do I have to keep working? Can I do my other passion job, which he had in selling some stuff in markets and things like that? So he's in the food and catering industry.
Okay. I love it. I've spoken to a lot of people and they said, I'm going to buy a property in 2024. And I said, this is cool. We haven't got a pre-approval yet. And then we're just initial chats. And I'm like, but we're already like May, June. And then by the time you find a property, there's another month or 2 and then settle it a month later. I'm like, we're already into the second half of the year and possibly into the third quarter of the year. So if anyone's listening, they said, start of the year, I was going to buy a property in 2024 and you haven't taken action. I'm like, it sounds silly. And we're only 4 months, 4 or 5 months into the year, but the next few months are going to go pretty quickly. And if you're not taking action now, like, I've got to employ you. Like, look at Gary. Yeah. That is 2 properties in 3 months. He's taken some massive action.
Well, the classic one you hear now starts coming up, and I'm sure you're the same, is I need to do my tax return. And then they go through that, and then they get their paperwork
Unless you're
done.
Self-employed, you do not need to do a tax return. I don't know. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've got a very good friend. He's like salaried. He's like, man, I've got to do my tax return. I was like, for what? You're salaried. You just got to give a pay slip, mate.
Exactly.
Unless you're self-employed. And self-employed don't even need to do their 2024s.
No, you don't even get a slip. It goes straight to the ATO. It's so easy.
You can still use 2023s until March next year if you're self-employed. So, there's no rush. There's no rush to do the tax return.
It's the mindset again, right?
Correct. It's another excuse.
Creating their own excuses.
It's another excuse. So, if that's a crutch that you're leaning on, again, we're going to challenge you. So, it probably comes off a little bit strong, but this is what you need in your corner. You need someone to kind of go, is that really an excuse, or are you just creating a wall that doesn't need to be there, and we need to break that down? So what do they say? Take it as a little bit of chili powder. But if that means you take some action, that's our mission accomplished.
Yeah, correct.
Right? Cool. Let's roll through to our next client. Lovely young couple. Again, we're talking about buying in pretty quick succession here.
So again, Naga, as we call him in Mahana, referred from a broker, just migrants to Australia, bought their house in the Northwest, doing really well, good jobs, and just wasn't, a little bit worried and knew they wanted to invest in property, but what do we do? Some friends would tell them to buy a house and land package in the area they live in.
Because you'll never go wrong buying near it.
Yeah, exactly, right? So we live here, it must be a good area.
Yeah.
So, I guess he consulted us, went through a few different scenarios, did the property investment assessment with him. So just really giving him some advice on what we're doing, being fully transparent about where we're buying, show them these sort of case studies so they feel like it is real, it's not a myth. Then just went on to the first one and got them in WA. So that was a tricky one for them, right? $500,000 or $400,000. Where are you going to buy that? Like,
correct.
Brisbane had already gone way past that. And that was, again, they were positive in their mindset. It's okay, well, we're going to put trust in you.
Beautiful.
We show them a lot of data, show them a lot of numbers, did cash flow analysis. So instead of saying, just trust me, I'm a good bloke, I'll look after you. It's, well, trust me, but here's why. And read through this data, read through the analysis, and then it's okay, well, let's go. And then, we focused on again on Perth, and again their budget was around that 450 mark, but was able to get a very good looking home built in 2014.
Correct.
So a lot of times we find what first time investors are a little bit nervous about. So their rose coloured glasses want something that looks a little bit new, a little bit worried about repairs and maintenance, really cause people a little bit of anxiety.
I mean, that's when we talk to investors, one of the biggest concerns, right? Like repairs and maintenance bills up the wazoo, and
So we had to find that balance.
Yep.
Which we did, and that's 2014. It was under 10 years at that.
Absolutely.
Under 10 years at that time, so I had a little bit of depreciation left as well.
Yeah.
And so we got that one done. They were very happy. And then, sure enough, the plan was honestly to get one. That's how they felt. But again, as I mentioned earlier, once they get that confidence, the bug, like, oh, we can do this again. Talk to their broker. Their broker's encouraged them, keep going. You've got the money. Then a little bit of an increase in budget over here at $500,000. Still a relatively newish house, smaller block, this one.
Yep.
But again, Baldavis is very well known for anyone who's been investing in Perth to have done very, very well over that period of time. Just coming off the ball now, but when we bought, again, it was still in a very good buying zone.
Okay, cool. So purchased at 412, revalued at 555,000. How long has that taken to get that uplift?
For
Bellevue.
Bellevue, that was 12 months as well.
12 months. So 12 months, we've got 43K. And then I'm going to say within a few months.
So we roll straight away. So both of these were bought within that year.
Yeah. So within a year, we've got just under 40. So 32, we'll say 32 plus 40, 70, 80 grand uplift in a year. That's someone's salary that average salary has just been saved on these properties. Mate, well done.
Yeah, so they're well on their way, right? Because they've also got a nice home in a good area in the northwest, plus these investments. So they've got plenty of equity sitting there, plus with their northwest home, so they will be able to keep going when they're ready. They've got to also consider a lot of our clients. We talk future planning about schooling as well.
Yes.
Private school versus public school.
Correct.
They go private. Well, that's going to affect them in the future. I give my own example. We haven't bought anything in 5 or 6 years. Purely, new business, COVID, and then 2 girls in private schools. So that curved our spending capacity and fund money. So once that all finishes, we'll be in a better position again.
It's funny. Like we think about it now when our girls are 3 and 5. And it's like, I'm sure as they get to that school age, I'm like, those fees are just going to increase
That's right.
even more than what. And mate, we do this because we want to obviously give our kids the best possible start in life.
Yeah.
Which is where you take a young couple like this and going, they're probably doing this not for only themselves, but for their kids, the future generation.
Yeah.
They come to this country. You said they're migrants. Come to this country, rolling up their sleeves, bought 3 properties in this country. That's insane.
Yeah.
When you look at what they've done. Again, if you haven't listened to the episode, listen to one with Ronnie Breck that I've recorded. Scottish carpenter, came to this country 10 years ago, acquired 5 properties. Its gross increase has been over $600,000, right? Since being in the game for a couple of years, since 2021. You couldn't save that much money.
No, that's right.
And so when people are looking at opportunity costs of like, do I buy something and what if it has repairs and maintenance, and what if it has a tenant turnover, and what if I have a land tax bill, for example, mate, that's cool. They're success fees though of being in the market. Yeah. And
they're great stories, right?
Yeah.
This is what our country's built on, and we're both migrants and our
100%.
parents, and it's really good stories. And a lot of our clients still are supporting people back home and their families back home. And I've got a guy coming on board next week, and he's considering he has to bring his parents. So it's $120K that he has to pay to sponsor them.
Holy smokes.
To bring them in. So that's affected his cash flow. So he's already budgeted for that, but still going to invest in property.
Here's the thing. He could buy a property. At some point, he can pull that equity out. He doesn't have to like save and scrimp for that money. It's like a property will do some of that heavy lifting. Yeah. If not all of it, some of it at least. Yeah. To then go towards that.
And that's where goals are really important. Why we like to set that plan up and talk about game plans and understand that. And in his situation, so he's a businessman, and so he's been pouring his money into that. And he's like, I'm stopping for a minute now. I want to buy some property.
Yes.
Help us buy that, and then he'll put some money back into his business.
Yeah.
Again.
Awesome.
So people just pausing for a minute to say, well, I can keep pouring more money in into my business. I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Let's step back, put it back in some bricks and mortar.
Yep.
And then we'll go again later.
Awesome. Let's just go back to this couple here. So what is their game plan? So is the game plan to buy, again, I asked about Gary, I think it was, but to buy properties to then sell them off and pay off the owner-occupied debt? Is it to buy more properties and then cash flow that for retirement, or to wind down someone's hours at work, for example? What are some of the goals that you're seeing come up for clients and why they're going to buy property?
I find particularly clients in their 30s,
yep,
it's too hard for them to see retirement. It's just too far away. And so it's probably okay to take a accumulation phase.
Yep.
Let's accumulate some assets, and then let's take stock and see how they're doing. And then do we go for the bigger family home, which is a common one? Do we go from the single-story house at the first home they bought to buy the bigger house? And that will take up a lot of their funds, as you can imagine.
Well, now they've got giant mortgage. Yeah.
And then do we talk about schooling, things like that in the future, or do we keep multiplying the assets out from an investment point of view? So a lot of them don't think that deep, and so when we build that we give them different scenarios. So like you said, buy X amount of, let's say 4, to reach a magic number of $200,000, for example. And then how does that look at 60? And then do sell a couple off and live off that. So there's a few different scenarios that we pull out. At least they can see what the future could look like in a chart on a spreadsheet, and then gives them confidence that, okay, we're doing the right thing, but we probably don't need to make that decision today. Yeah. That we're going to buy 6 and sell 2, and because things change, interest rates change. We had 1.8% our home loan before everything happened. So things change.
I've been variable the whole time, mate. So I had someone the other day, we're fixed till next year at 1.9. I was like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Although they might be back at your house crying for some food, and when it does go up, they haven't saved.
And I guess a reason I ask that is, again, some people come to us like, I just want to buy a few properties. I'm like, what are we looking to do here? Give me a bit of a game plan where we can reverse engineer that. Now, we don't have to have it like locked down. Doesn't need to be crystal clear, but as long as we have some an idea on what we want to do. What I mean is these guys might say, hey, look, we just want to go on a bit of a spending spree. We've got this time in our life now. Baby's not in daycare anymore, so we don't have these childcare fees, both in school. And I feel like we have these waves in life.
Yep.
Like you're saying, you're at a different stage with 2 private school fees. If you told me like 2 years ago when we had 2 kids, or maybe a year and a bit, when we had 2 girls in childcare, just bleeding money on childcare fees.
Absolutely.
There wasn't much left over, mate. And there's decent incomes that Bernie and I are on. And I was like, we just got to get Sienna into school. And then it's like,
you rejoice when they're in primary.
We're back. And wait till the second. Wait till Zara's back well, she starts school, mate.
Yeah.
We'll see that extra cash come in as well. True. And so we'll go into this period where it's like public school, and then you might go, hey, look, we've got 6 years of being in the clear before we maybe get to like the next load of like expenses with children.
Yeah.
And with private school fees, that could take you out of the market for the next 5 to 6 years. Yeah. Then you're in this clear window. It's like, hey, we can come back in, but that stage you're in a different stage of life.
Yep.
I'm going to say you're like 40s, 50s, your risk appetite maybe just starts to drop back a little bit, meaning you're not as like eager, ambitious because you've built it. You don't want to risk the house, but you should be doing something as well. And you get to a point that it's like, oh, are we leaving it too late? And quite often we see people that have come to us when they think it's too late. You and I know it's not too late. There's still time, but you have these waves of like periods, especially with kids, where you go, if we don't have this acquisition period where we're buying, chunks of 2 or 3, just buying one year on year is a very slow burn. Yeah. Yeah. And if generally they have their own rock, there is a good amount of equity, and then we're back to double incomes, or one parent's part-time, but back to better incomes to work with as well.
Well, yeah, taking action when you can, right? That's a big term that we use about, if it's the right time, can do that, because things change, and and like you've got to have some fun in life as well. And it could be Disneyland one year, which is 30-40K gone in one trip, so that can happen. So you do have to take those phases in life and make those decisions. Is it having a little bit of fun? Yes. Or is it just going to keep pouring money into mortgages and in homes? And because nothing's guaranteed, right, as we get older. So I think I always like to tell people to have that balance and not just get too serious about building wealth only.
That's such a good point, because you could be locked in on the goals, but mate, you look at what your kids are, and it's like, hey, look, we missed out on some of these trips purely at the sake of like doubling down on investments. Like,
correct.
For what? You've left it too late that they don't want to spend that time with you anymore. They're going to complete school and go straight into uni. It's like you've had this window where you can spend a little bit of time, doing the Disneyland or a cruise or whatever your mojo is. Or we've got clients that are caravanning for 6 months around Australia. We've got to get them on. Wow. I've told them, I'm like, you've got to come on and share your story. 6 months caravanning around Australia, fueled by the fact that they've got investment properties and their home rented out. That's affording them to be
with kids.
Yeah. Nomadic. Kids in the caravan.
Excellent. Homeschooling.
6 months around Australia, homeschooling and just loving life. I'm like, that is a story that needs to be told.
Yeah, that would be great.
I get excited when I hear that because that's what property enables people to do.
Yeah. One of the things a lot of people talk to me about, we ask their whys and classical Simon Sinek. But a lot of people say retirement seems to be an easy out for most people. I retire early.
Yeah.
And I often challenge them, right? So, well, what are you going to do? I don't know. Do you play golf? No. What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm like, and I say, well, what about you? Why did you? So I just wanted some options in life. I didn't know what it was at that time.
Yes.
But as my career grew and I travel a lot and, started buying property, I kind of saw that property was something I was really passionate about. The data side was very familiar to me because that's what I worked in, that sort of marketing and analysing data from a loyalty point of view and customer engagement. So, so for me, that was the choice. And for me, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So it all kind of just aligned. And eventually I took that punt after being made redundant and said, well, here's, Luke and I had been talking and said, let's give it a crack.
Nice.
Knowing that if it did fail and COVID, didn't know COVID was going to come, and at least I had a backing of properties that my wife and I could dispose of if we had to just keep the dream alive. Or go back to the dark world and go back get a corporate job. Yeah.
There was no option. Bernie and I spoke about this. Scratch that itch going, do we ever go back? It's like, I don't think we could. It would be a square peg in a round hole.
I have to admit, I thought about it during COVID and all your mates are at home doing nothing, earning $200K.
They're baking bread. They're off to the beach. I'm like, dude, I'm chained to my laptop. But I think you do it now going, it'll come. And people talk about this lofty time of retirement. I'm like, be careful what you wish for. I see people that have retired and, parents, friends' parents that have retired and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just be careful what you wish for. You've got to have that because the check stops coming in. The paycheck stops coming in. It changes your mindset. I've actually been listening to a really good podcast about NBA players.
Oh, yeah.
And, their lifespan is like maybe technically 4 years if they, on a normal contract. And what they talk about is that's why they go broke. 4 years, they've earned like millions of dollars in those years, but then the checks stop coming in afterwards. But they've got used to a lifestyle and the people around got used to this lifestyle.
Yeah, right.
And it really got me thinking, like, that's retirement. Like, you got used to a lifestyle and it's just like an off button. Like, I retired, bang, check stops coming in and now you got this finite resource of cash to live off. Whereas if you've got a property portfolio, I'm like, you've got rental incomes, like you've got multiple streams of income coming in. There is no way you want to be relying on the pension. There's no way you want to be relying on the pension at all to fund your retirement.
And that's kind of one of the, is it, if it's not about retirement, is it just not relying on the government? Depending on that sounds like a good plan. Okay, well, let's use that as your goal and let's aim for that.
Or choice is just to drop down to part-time work. That's a really good way to step down. It's like you drop into part-time work, phase yourself down a little bit, and then you can replace that with things that you really want to do.
Yeah.
Like Gary wants to do the food and catering. It's like, hey man, you got the means and the ability to go and chase a passion project without having being a gun to your head that you've got to turn over X revenue to make this work as well.
That's right. Yeah. That's good.
I love it, mate. Thank you so much. Look, it takes a lot. Buyers agents usually lock down where they're buying and what they've been, purchasing for clients. That's why I said, if you're coming in, let's do this, and you're strong yes, which says a lot about your confidence in what you guys are doing and where you're buying, that you're happy to be an open book. So if you're listening, kudos to yourself, Julian. It takes a lot of kahunas to come in here and be open about where you've been buying. Tim, if you've enjoyed that chat, I've loved it. We'll get you back in again some point in the future. Show us how these guys have grown, guys, girls, and what they're doing with their portfolios as well. But if you loved what Julian and Tim doing at Search Party, you want to reach out, we'll include details as well. I had a couple of clients, go through you guys and having some really good feedback as well, mate. So keep it up. Great work.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate your help.
Beautiful. If you know anyone, and so I keep rounding out our messages saying, we're not here for reviews. We're not here for likes or subscriptions, for example. We just want to share and get this message out there to more people. Yeah. So if you know someone that may be sitting on the outer, not sure about how to take action to get into that first or maybe second investment property, flick them a link to this episode. Share with the knowledge that you've learnt, pass the baton on, and let's help grow 1% property investors in Australia to succeed in their investing journey. That's a wrap for another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I'll talk to you soon.